Hello, hello, it's Dr. Rowe talking to you today in the area of communication about body gestures. Now, this is a great question that comes up. People say, well, Dr. Rowe, what are some of the key body gestures that I need to be aware of, but also that I can use when I'm presenting to my audiences or in a meeting, or if I'm sitting down with somebody, I want to grab their attention and communicate more effectively. Talk to me about body gestures. Now, this, of course, comes back to body language. Now, this again is a huge subject, and we could simply talk. In fact, those of you that have been through any of the programs that I've got on communication, you'll know that actually a big part of this is actually understanding our body language and how we communicate, but how we read other people as well. So I want to simplify it. Now, as you know, with many of the images that I have, they kind of relate to what I'm talking about here. You've got two people going, leaning forward. Their body gesture is, trying to project a message across, and it's quite in people's face, like head-on gestures. And also I like to bring up a sliding thing to give you some ideas and give you some notes, because it's one thing for me to talk, of course, but if I put it up here, some of you are more visual. And so if you look at my body language, even now I'm pointing to my eyes, I'm pointing to the screen. And this is something I'm going to talk about now, is you can use your body gestures to focus somebody down when you're communicating with them. Right, so let me pull this up on the screen and it should come up there. There it is. Look, body gesture there. And that's the first one, hands. So without going into lots of detail, we have like a parasympathetic nervous system, but we also have we have a system that kind of responds to what's going around us. And often what happens when we're communicating is there's a part of our system that is trying to protect us. And over the years that we have evolved, one of the things that human beings look at is the hands, because hands, depending on their position, I'm sure you're aware of this, if you've ever been with somebody who's quite aggressive, their hands can come towards you. Look, they're shouting like this, they're going, whereas somebody who's got their hands behind their backs, for example, and standing like this, leaning down with their shoulders, that body gesture has a much more humbling impact. So you can use your hands in a way. It goes back to the handshake. When people used to handshake, it was like, I haven't got a weapon in my hand, let's shake hands. But hands can give telltale signs when somebody's nervous. When I do facial reading and body reading with people, one of the things I teach them to look at is their hands, because their hands, if in synchronicity with the words that they're saying and they seem very confident, that will be reflected by the hands as I'm doing right now. But other people, their hands will actually do something differently to what their mouth is saying and what their words are saying. So their hands might be twitching while they're saying I'm confident, but really they're not, because their hands are giving clues away. Now, if we flip that around as a communicator, somebody wants to communicate with more impact, these things become like your wands. And when I talk about the different archetypes, when one of my components in my communication system are the archetypes, and one of the archetypes is the magician, and I can actually demonstrate to people, if you use your hands a certain way, if you communicate 1, 2, 3, 4 points, you can literally, when you're talking to somebody, anchor their understanding of what you're saying to a place in the air just by using your hands. So hands can be very effective to communicate with impact. If I talk to you like this and say, hi, it's Dr. Rowe here, I want to talk to you about communication, and I just talk like that for so long, okay, my head's moving and it's great because I can stay engaged with my eyes, which we'll come to in a minute, but stepping back and bringing my hands into it, suddenly it brings the communication to life. So there's number one. Number two is our eyes. Now, this is absolutely vital. When you're communicating with somebody, and I look for this a lot when I'm talking to somebody, especially if I'm training somebody up to be more effective in business, pitching a product, standing in front of a stage, coaching, mentoring somebody, and they want guidance on how to get their message across with impact in a short space of time to be more effective. A lot of it comes down to the intensity and the intention that's coming through your eyes. You can tell when somebody's glazed. When you're watching somebody and you're communicating, if they're not with you, they're going to go into a glazed state. But equally, you've got to have that level of intention in your eyes, which hopefully you're feeling from me, which means that even if you might occasionally do what I did deliberately there, which is to look away, it's kind of me reflecting on something, but I bring it back and I look straight into the eyes of the person I'm communicating with so that they can feel the intention, the intensity, and the impact comes now from eyes and hands. Thirdly is the stance or the stance. This is crucial. Now, when I'm teaching people to speak in front of an audience, one of the things I look at is the feet, because the feet can twitch like a bit of an Elvis Presley, but Elvis did it with a very specific actiony body and his hips, and that was a whole sexual thing. I'm talking about boom, somebody rocking around a bit, looking a little bit nervous, try to get a message across, but they're not really there. Now I move around, but if you notice, I move, each movement is with purpose. So even when I finish a sentence, I'm anchoring that into my body. So my stance and my words and my physiology and my tone and everything about my energy is positioned down through this core. And it's something I really powerfully believe that if you can anchor that and that intention together with your body language, people will really engage with what you're saying. So that's a very important tip. And finally is our head. Now, this is important because you might not believe it, but just a slight, if I do this, if I shift into here, my energy shifts to here. Whereas if I go back like this, I say, how are you doing? And I put my head backwards, there's a lightness to my energy. My chest comes up, and yeah, but you might not take me as seriously if I just lean forward and put my head like this. I just say, this is such an important point you need to listen to. Get your pens out and write this down. Everyone goes, shit, he's serious. Just turning slightly sideways and then leaning into the camera like that has a different impact to me just standing like this. So our head plays a big part in this. If we're just stood still all the time communicating our words and we're just saying like this, and our tonalities, like my shoulders, my hands, everything's flat, even moving my head like this brings it to life. If I do this to you, you can get a sense that I'm more serious, whereas if I it's less serious. Now you bring that into the hands and the body and the eyes and everything we talked about, completely different. So there's so many different body gestures, and I'm just kind of touching on a few here to get the point across. Just play with it, have some fun, go play with this, and as you come back to some of the future videos that I'm going to talk about, you'll pick up on adding this together with other elements, and before you know it, you can start to create some really good impact with what you're doing. So have some fun, play with your body gestures, and see how people react to you. See you on my next video.